Okay, so this is our first webinar from Malaysia. We're just waiting for everyone to arrive. I'm Alexander and joined by Nicholas. How are you doing, Nicholas?
I am doing good. It's a really hot day over in Singapore at about 30 degrees, but it's good to see you and everyone back.
And it's been storming here, and I heard that it's also pretty warm in Malaysia these days, and maybe we're going to find out. The border's opening. Singapore today is the first day we don't have to wear a mask when we go outside.
In very select situations, I might add.
Wow, being outside. You can go for a walk and not wear a mask. That's
shocking. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, so a couple of household items is over 1,000 people registered for this event, and the event is technically limited to 500 people. So once 500 people join, others may have trouble accessing. So that's our bad. We didn't raise the limit. We're recording this session, so it's going to be recorded. We'll be sharing the link as always. I have a dedicated website on which all of the webinars that we do will, the summary of the webinar, and or at least the title, the date, and the link will be there to the recording. It is 10:02, so I guess we can get started. What do you think, Nick?
Let's wait for just a quick couple more minutes. Sure. I think it's about 300 participants. So we can just wait for a bit.
All right. So a lot of people in the chat saying good morning. So yeah, good morning, everyone. So more household items. There is a Q&A function. While it's nice to communicate in the chat, if you have questions, you can put them in the Q&A box, and we'll dedicate maybe, I don't know how long. We're quite spontaneous with these things, but maybe we'll pick up the questions during the session, and if not, we'll try to clear them all at the end.
I think we can get started, Sander.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So this webinar is dedicated to Malaysia. We're giving this as part of the service to the Scopus Consortium for the 20 public universities in Malaysia. I'm Alexander, senior consultant, joined by my fellow senior consultant, Nicholas. We're both based in Singapore. I'm Dutch, I'm from Holland, but I live in Singapore already for 9 years. And I'm quite excited this year. Seems like we might be able to come and visit in person sometime. So definitely miss the human quality of spending time with people. Today's session is focused on Scopus. And we want to look at how Scopus can help you as a researcher. And that assumes that you're a researcher, doesn't it? And actually, I have a poll to ask you what role best describes you. So let me quickly launch the poll. So before we get started, maybe if you could describe, what role here describes you best, and if there's none that describes you well, you could put in the chat who you are.
Sander, quick question. Have you started recording it? This session yet?
Yes, it's automatically started recording when we started.
Great.
Yeah. All right, 66% have answered the poll, so we'll give it another second. Anything on your mind, Nicholas?
Well, first and foremost, for everyone who just joined the call, you will get a copy of this session and the recording, so not to worry. Because we tend to get questions for those very, very often. So I just want to reassure everyone in today's session that you get a copy of this.
All right, so 80% of you have answered the poll. We'll give it another 10 seconds, and then we'll look at the results. But I can tell you already, there's a lot of students and researchers, which is great. So 5 seconds, 3 seconds, 1 very long second. Okay. So I'm going to share the results. You should see it on your screen. So it's 43% students. So hello and welcome. 38% researchers, handful of librarians, administrators, faculty, and also some management. So welcome everyone. We're going to look at how Scopus can help you as a researcher, but we'll probably also cover things that are relevant to other people, so students, librarians, administrators, faculties. The agenda is really, really simple. I wanted to actually make smaller, like those bars look really big, but it's an introduction. We want to look at how Scopus can help researchers, but we'll also look how it can help people who aren't necessarily researchers, but may have a need to find and understand peer-reviewed scientific content. And we're going to give you certificates for today's training. We're not going to physically give them to you, but we will give you a link and a workshop code so that you can complete a survey and retrieve your certificate for today's training if that's what you want. So if you want or need a certificate, you'll be able to retrieve one. Nicholas and I are just going to kind of go back and forth. We didn't rehearse anything. We just made some slides, but we've done this so often. And we will be doing this more often. So today is the first session of a series of 6 webinars that we have planned for Malaysia. So today is focused on what I would call maybe the basics of Scopus, searching, finding things, some light analysis. But April 26th, we will look at author profiles in Scopus, how you can find your author profile, how you can edit and maintain your author profile. Then on the 31st of May, we'll look at research metrics in Scopus. So things like the H-index and citations and field-weighted citation impact and PLUMX, what are all those numbers and what do they mean? And, how should you interpret them? What are they useful for? So that's on May 31st. June 28th, so already getting towards the middle of the year then, is journals, conferences, and books in Scopus. So that's looking at what content you can find in Scopus in terms of peer-reviewed journals, conferences, books, and book series. How can you find the content that is most relevant to you? That's June 28th. You want to cover the last two, Nicholas? I feel like I'm hogging all the airtime.
We'll be covering on preprint topics, funding acknowledgements over in Scopus, how you're actually able to search for this information, as well as how you're able to leverage on this information as well to learn how to approach funding bodies and to help yourself as well. The last session will be in September the 27th, all the way to Q3 of 2022. We'll be talking about the UN SDGs, what they are, how it is that you're able to find the relevant data, how you can search for it, and how you're able to identify within document which SDGs they fall under. We understand that SDGs are becoming more of a trending topic within Malaysia, and we want to make sure that we are able to support you in your research on this. So you can take a quick photo of this. You can find that within the left side, all these are QR codes where you can scan in and register now quickly. If not, you get a copy of this presentation as well, and you'll be able to log in as well.
So someone has asked whether we can spotlight the speaker. So let's see, how does that work? Add spotlight. Okay, I've spotlighted both of us since we're both a speaker. I'm not sure what it does, but so these are today's is number 1, and these are the 5 others that we're doing. You can register by using the QR code. So that's why we're leaving this slide on for a bit. And if there are more than 500 registrations in future, we'll try to expand the limit for Zoom. Okay, so we'll get started. So Scopus introduction. Scopus is a database that collects high quality peer-reviewed content. So it's collecting peer-reviewed journals, books, and conferences from over 7,000 different publishers, covering over 24,000 serial titles. So having all of that, let's say, curated high-quality content in one database means that you're able to search and find journals and books and conferences, as well as all of the articles that are contained in that content. But there are also author profiles. So we have over almost 18 million authors have a profile in Scopus. And there are profiles for institutions. So every university or research institution has an affiliation profile. That means that you as a user of Scopus can not only find content and link to the full text, but also you'll be able to assess individual researchers and understand their performance and what they do and who they work with. But it might, help you to find people or institutions to collaborate with by understanding which individual or which institution is active in what area of science. It has an evaluation function to understand the global research trends in terms of who's doing research in which topics and what is relatively growing and impactful. So those are some of the key use cases. The data that's in Scopus is exclusively, we are the provider to Times Higher Education and QS World University Rankings for their rankings exercise, where we provide the publication and citation data. The content as of February is almost, almost 86 million records. So that means papers coming from 7,000 publishers. We have almost 19 million open access documents. So that means anybody can get the full text. Anybody with the internet can access the full text, right? We, as mentioned, cover journals, conferences, books, where books is both individual books as well as book series. And books are very focused on social sciences, arts and humanities. Conferences, where we have 140,000 serial conference events, which consists of about 11,000 conference papers, are very focused on engineering and computer sciences. The journals are across all subject areas. You can see on the left, we cover physical sciences, health, social sciences, life sciences very well. So Scopus is very comprehensive. You can find a lot of content in Scopus that comes from not just the big publishers, but also from many, many local publishers. I think we have probably over 80 Malaysian journals that are in Scopus as well, about 70 Thai journals, about 90 Indonesian journals. So we've worked really hard to include a lot of local journals in Scopus. But to get into Scopus is quite difficult. There is an evaluation process. So Scopus is curated. Not every journal can get into Scopus. They have to pass quite a strict criteria and evaluation process. So we reject over 50% of the journals that are submitted to us. And we also reevaluate the journals that are in Scopus to ensure that all of the journals in Scopus meet the quality criteria. So in that way, it's a little bit different than Google Scholar or any other database that includes everything. Scopus is very selective, curated. So I think that's important to understand. It's quite difficult to get a journal into Scopus. In Scopus, everything's connected. So yes, you might be searching for papers, articles, or book chapters, but every paper is connected to an author, and every author is connected to their other papers and to an institution, and an author can be connected to other authors and to funding data and so forth. So it's really connected data. So it doesn't matter, if you search for a paper, you can link from the paper to the author, to their co-authors, and from the co-authors to their papers and so forth. Or you might search for an author and find the author, and from the author find their papers, and from the paper find the co-authors, from the co-authors find the papers of the co-authors and so forth. So because everything's connected, it's quite easy to search that way. And I seem to have lost Nicholas.
No, I'm right here, Sander.
All right. You want to do this one then?
Yep, sure thing. Sander, I would have to trouble you to enable my video. For some reason, I can't switch it back on.
All right.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, remove spotlight, and now.
So moving forward, there are different tools that you can actually leverage on within Scopus so that you can actually remain focused on what's important. Sander has pointed out in the previous few slides what are the content that we are able to curate onto Scopus, how we are able to actively curate this content, how we're able to maintain standards. There's a few different ways in which you can leverage the information over in Scopus. So first and foremost, you have scopus.com, which allows you to access information quickly in the most visible way. So you're actually able to get the content needed to review literature in connection with authors, institutions, funders, and more. What is also very useful for most people would also be profiles. Scopus is the premium source of profiles, and it's the only database which implements an algorithmic and systematic author, as well as affiliation disambiguation.
You want to try your camera again?
Sure. What this really means, thanks, Sander. What this really means is that you're actually able to get information quickly because the data engine over on our side is able to group and cluster you accordingly. What is also really effective will be research metrics. So we offer more research metrics and on nearly twice the number of peer-reviewed publications than any other abstract and citation database. We have created our own metric, which is site score, and we've been updating this methodology to make sure that it's the most relevant over the past few years. We've included SJL, SNP, H-index as well as on top of other citation overview metrics. For those of you who are librarians, the Scopus APIs can be used in conjunction with one another via digital identifiers such as DOIs or author IDs. And for some people, like with Times Higher Education and QS University rankings, we work together with them on customized data. So this is why global evaluations, ranking bodies, reports, landscape analysis, and other strategic collaborations, we'll be able to provision them with the data. Back over to you, Sander.
Yes, I think that's a good point, is that most of the people here today, you're going to be using scopus.com, right? That's a web interface. And you have access to all the data, the profiles, the research metrics. The APIs are a backend system. And that means that libraries or different departments of a university or a government can actually access Scopus data through an API to integrate it into their local systems. So if you're listening and you work at a university and you're responsible for integrating data and you want to know more about that, just get in touch with us, because every Scopus customer can use the Scopus API. That's just a free part of their subscription. And we're currently kind of trying to reach out and understand how people use APIs and help them to let's say, do what they want to do with the API, because we know that it's quite a technical thing, right? So not everyone knows what all the different things that you can do with an API are. So that's, for those of you interested, just reach out to me by email. Yeah, so curated, I mentioned that it's very difficult to get a journal into Scopus. So that sense of a curated data set where we include a broad set of scientific journals, conferences, books, but at the same time are selective to make sure that it's top quality. That's important. That everything is interlinked. As I said, like the papers are linked to the author profiles, are linked to the affiliation profiles, and it might be linked to funding data and so forth. So that sense of linking things together is really important for understanding how things are connected in the real world, right? And that can help you get insights that'll be valuable to researchers, librarians, administrators, and so forth. We're always trying to improve Scopus. So which content is included, what's the functionality, what type of interlinkage do we have, but also the what data types and what kind of signals, what are the insights that you can get from Scopus. We're always working on improving that. So consultative support is that Scopus comes with a lot of help. Part of that is Nicholas, part of that is me. These webinars or us visiting the university or being available to you if you have questions. But there are also some certification programs for librarians and some support mechanisms, which we'll talk about at the end of the training today. Mentioned that there have been improvements, so we're constantly improving. And last year, what we did was to really work on redesigning the author profile page. As mentioned, every author, every human being that has at least one paper published in a journal that's included in Scopus automatically has a profile created. And there's a profile page that summarizes, the work of that person. So that those profile pages have been redesigned and improved. There's also an author feedback wizard that allows authors to make changes to their profile. So either to add papers, remove papers, change the name, so forth. And that feedback wizard, as we call it, has been improved to make it a little bit easier, more intuitive. Every document in Scopus has its own page, right? Whether it's an article, review, conference paper, it's a document, right? It's got a title, abstract, who the authors are, and so forth. That page has also been redesigned to be a little bit more modern and include all of the key kind of metrics that represent that paper. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Preprints. So, wow, do you want to try and explain this?
So preprints are something that we have worked in, and SSR and preprints have basically been added to the content. And we have also added from 4 other major preprint servers since January this year. So now you're able to get information faster, prompter, and quicker before, so that you understand what is coming up in the most updated trends of research as well, without having to wait too much for it.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know what a preprint is that usually when you're looking in Scopus, someone's knocking at my door. So can you do this? I'm gonna step away because I have someone banging on the door.
Go for it. Yeah. The perils of working from home. So on top of preprints, which is what we do, we have also been able to increase the funding data available to us. So we have been able to increase the number of articles containing the funding information. We have also optimized the tracking functionality, i.e., we have been able to showcase this information better than before. And we have also launched a project to add historical funding award data to author profiles. Another one that we have also improved our functionality on will be in terms of open access filters. So we have added and updated open access classifications for 17 million documents to date, so that open access content is now easier to locate, it's easier to be searched for, because we have updated their categorization. So if you're looking for Go Open Access and Open Archive, it's actually now easier to do so than ever before.
Yeah, sorry about that. So somebody had come, apparently they're fixing my roof because it's been leaking a bit, and the workers, I think, want to come in here and have a look, but I've asked them to come back in an hour. So back to preprints is traditionally all of the content in Scopus has been peer reviewed, right? So those are papers which have made it through a peer review and been published in either a peer reviewed journal, book, or conference. However, there's an existence of preprint servers where authors, right when they finish a manuscript, will publish it on a preprint server so that people can read it even before it makes it through peer review. And typically a peer review can take a long time, right? What's the advantage of this is, well, sometimes it's important to understand what research is being done and some of the early results before the time lag of peer review. For example, in the case of COVID-19, you can't wait 6 to 8 months to start to get the first signals of how many cases there are and how deadly it is and so forth. You need to get early signals. It's very important in these cases. So preprints serve that purpose of providing early signals to what's happening in the research community, with the caveat that some of those papers might not actually make it through the peer review, right? So we wanted to and have added them to Scopus, but they're not mixed in the search results. So when you search for something in Scopus, you only get peer-reviewed content. However, when you look at an author profile, there'll be two lists, essentially. There'll be the peer-reviewed content and there will be any preprints from selected preprint servers. That was a mouthful. So the use cases, so that we wanted to not spend too much time showing you slides. This is already quite a bit, but we want to run you through how to do some of these use cases here. So starting with search and discovery, looking for things, finding articles, reviews, book chapters. Boosting efficiency. So how can you set up search alerts so that you don't need to go every week and search for the same thing? You can create a search and have Scopus send you an email once a week with the latest content. So it's like you got someone working for you, which is awesome. I really wish someone worked for me. Linking to full text, right? Scopus has abstracts and citations and a lot of metadata, but Scopus itself doesn't include the full text, but you can link from Scopus to the full text of an article. And the way in which that's done has changed because you can link through to the publisher, but you can also link through to, what's that called? What's the word I'm looking for? Is it in a repository or, yeah. So there are multiple versions of the full text that you can link to, but we're making it easier to basically get from Scopus to the full text. We're going to look at how to understand the impact of paper. So Scopus has like papers, like looking at a dashboard, you got citations, field weighted citation impact, Plumex, a lot of different figures. You know, what does that say about the paper? What insight does it provide you? Finding, analyzing, right? The first four are basically about papers, but you know, we're going to look also at finding people, institutions, and journals, and maybe looking at very lightly at the analytical features. You know, it's kind of searching, analyzing your search results. We will do that live in Scopus. So search and discovery. Can you see Scopus now? Okay, so Scopus is basically, you go to www.scopus.com. You should be able to access it from within the IP range of your university. When you get to the page, it's pretty clear that it's geared around searching for things, right? There's a search box, and here it says documents, authors, and affiliations. So you can search for different entities. We'll start with documents, and you can search for a lot of different fields. So by default, it's set to the title, abstract, and keywords. So if you have a paper, right, you have a title, you have keywords, you have an abstract. You can search for a term or a collection of terms. You can use Boolean operators as well. So I can do something like so here I find 832 documents that in either the title, abstract, or keywords use the phrase tacit knowledge and the word education. You know, there's a list, there's a filter on the left, so I can, you know, if I only wanted to see open access papers, I can do that. If I only want to look at a particular year, or a particular field, if I want to look only in social sciences, or you can use all those filters on the left quite easily. It's by default sorted by date, so the newest papers are at the top, but I might want to put the highest cited paper at the top, for example. So that's one way of looking through things. Now, 832 papers is quite a lot of papers. If I'm doing research now and I'm interested in tacit knowledge and education, I'm thinking, well, that's more papers than I can read this week. So where am I going to start? I'm actually interested in psychology papers because that's my field, but I'm going to add social sciences because it's kind of related. So I selected those. I'm going to limit to, so now it's just 415. Let's say I don't want to look at very old papers. I want to look just at 2019 to present. I can select those and limit there. So now I've got 77 results, and they're sorted by cited by. And any one of those, I can click on it. And here you can see this paper is called Changing Design Education for the 21st Century. So it has the word education in the title. And if we look in the abstract, it has the word education, education, and tacit knowledge. So you can see why my search resulted in this paper. It's very transparent in that sense. So here we see the title. This paper is written by these two individuals here. We can actually link to their profile via these links. And we can see where they work. So we can see that both of these authors work in the design lab at the University of California in San Diego. Now, I'm going to ignore all the metrics for the moment and look at what type of paper is it. You can see it's an article, and then it's an open access article published in a journal. This would be the journal, right?
Yep.
So if I click on here, it's going to take me to the journal page. So you could see everything about the journal, but we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves. I'm just going to go back. There's a lot more that you can see about this paper. So we see here the abstract, the keywords, and we're going to see metrics, which we'll take you through a little bit later. In some cases, you see funding details, so we can see which funding bodies have provided the funding to do the research that's represented in this paper, including a funding text. So that gives you some information about that, as well as the references. So we see that this paper is citing 42 other papers. Some of those are in Scopus, other ones are not in Scopus. If the papers are in Scopus, then there's a link here to see that paper in Scopus. So that's the nature of a citation index, is that you index all of the metadata, including the references, and that the references link to the corresponding papers. And that means for every paper, you can see a citation count. You can see that this paper is cited by 40 other papers that are in Scopus. If you want to know which 40 papers are citing this paper, you can press on this link here, and you're going to get a nice little list of the 40 documents that cited this paper here. And that's simply the universal kind of nature of what a citation index does, right? Sometimes when you're doing research, you find, you're searching, you're reading, and I might read through 400 papers. You might find that one paper that you read and it changes everything about your view of a topic. And maybe you're young. I saw there are a lot of students here today, researchers. You're trying to become knowledgeable. You're trying to become, maybe become an expert in a particular field. And you have to do a lot of reading. And in my experience, sometimes would find a paper and I would read that and it would change the way that I think about a topic that I'm really interested in. And that was really awesome. But it also meant that I might want to read everything that's related to that paper. So if that paper was this paper here, this is totally not up my alley, but mathematical pedagogical content knowledge of early childhood teachers. But let's say that this paper is incredibly insightful to me. A couple things I could do. I could look at the references and start to read some of the papers that this paper has cited. So I start to look at the knowledge that this paper is grounded in. So that's one. Number two, I might look at the first author, maybe also some of the other authors, but I might click on the author and have a look at their profile. And I might decide that I want to look at their papers. I might want to read their papers, because if he is an expert in the same field that I'm interested in, he might be a person that I want to keep track of what he or she is doing. So you can set an alert for an author. So you can say, well, I want to receive an email every time that this person publishes a new paper, and I want it to be sent to my email address here. I want it to be sent every month on the 1st. Right? And then I set the document alert, and it says that your search alert has been created. That's one thing you can do. That's at an author level. But if we go back to the search that I did, which was tacit knowledge and education. Now I limited, you see my search history here. I went from tacit knowledge and education to limiting it to social sciences and psychology, and then limiting it to a number of years. I can also set a search alert for my searches. So if I set the search alert, I want to know, you can custom name it whatever you want. And this one I might want to receive every week on a Sunday while I'm preparing for my week, maybe Sunday night reading, right? Set a search alert. So now Scopus is going to send me an email with links to the newest papers, right? Because every day there are thousands of papers loaded into Scopus, right? It's every day there's more there. This way you don't need to repeat your search every week. You can just have Scopus email you a list of just the newest content, which you can, from your email, link into Scopus and have a look. I'm going to look quickly through the Q&A, Nicholas. Let me know, and let the audience know your thoughts on, I guess, the search and discovery phase of the research process.
It's actually very, I would say it's very ergonomic. And right now, what we have done so far is to showcase to you how you can do a basic search. There is, of course, an advanced search, but Sandra and myself will go into it in subsequent sessions where we can showcase to you how we're able to leverage on Boolean operators and how you can use advanced tagging so that you're able to optimize your search. You can also choose to add your search fields. You can choose to add date ranges. This allows you to customize it even more and even further. And the subject and the drop-down areas that you can look into would include, for instance, source title, affiliation name, affiliation city, funding sponsors, ISSN as well. So this really helps you to give a better understanding and searchability to what it is that you're looking for.
So let's try, we could see like tacit knowledge, and we want to see only papers where the person writing the paper is affiliated to an institution that's in Malaysia, right? Look, 175 papers. Sorry for interrupting you.
No, don't be. It's fine.
Here, see? So searching, I don't know. I mean, we used to have to teach people to search, but I feel like today's young people are born with an iPhone in their hand and internet from birth already, right? So searching Boolean operators and how to combine things and search in different fields is not that difficult. You just have to realize that every document in Scopus has different fields, and they're actually quite a lot, and you can simply search in each one. So that was the basics of searching for articles, reviews, book chapters. Now, how about if they want to search specifically for a book chapter? Let's try that. So I'm going to remove this one and just stick with tacit knowledge, but I want it to be only in a book. Can I do that?
You can also choose to, well, there are two different ways to do it, to be honest. I would actually just search for this tacit knowledge first and then filter by the types in the next page.
Okay, so now I'm tacit knowledge, 7,000 papers. I'm like, wow, that's a lot. And then on the left, I'm going to scroll down and see, oh, look, 4,000 are articles, 1,900 are conferences. So if I want to read book chapters and books only, I can select those two and limit to. And there we are. And then if that's what I'm going to be interested in, again, up here, you've got the search alert, which you can set up. Okay, that's weird, but if the email address you input belongs, no, it doesn't, it's fine. Or I can send it to Nicholas, that's right. I'm just going to start using your email for all these examples.
Not to worry, I have lots of examples for mine as well.
That was fun. All right, so I think what we want to do, we've covered both 1 and 2. So like finding things, searching for things, narrowing down your search, sorting it, linking from one thing to another, but also setting up alerts for specific searches and for authors. The next step might be, how do you link once you find a subset of articles that are interesting to you? How do you link to the full text? So I'm going to, let's do a different search. You got any topic in mind?
We can do everyone's favorite topic, which is COVID-19 and the updates.
Okay. So we've got a lot of papers there. So let's say we want to look specifically at, let's narrow it down. All right, 18,000 papers, not like you'll be able to read those, but all right, so they're sorted by cited, highest cited ones at the top. So there's something about the papers at the top that might cause them to be very highly cited. But let's say that this paper, you open it, and it says safety and efficiency of the COVID-19 vaccine. So that seems like a very hot topic. I have a lot of friends who debate with me whether vaccines are really as safe as everyone says. You can see this paper seems to address this very sensitive and important topic. And what can we see about the paper is that it is written by quite a lot of people affiliated to different institutions, including Pfizer. So you can see that Pfizer, the company that has created the vaccine, is also one of the authors, right? So that can be interesting information to understand. But already, I can see that this is a highly cited paper that's precisely in, what I wanted to look at. So there'd be different ways to link to the full text. So we have different buttons. We have the full text button, which should bring you directly to the publisher page. So here it's brought us to the New England Journal of Medicine. And here you should just be able to download the PDF here. And there it is. So now I've got the full text just like that. So that's one way of doing it.
I would say that's actually a very helpful way for doing it. And one of the key reasons for so is because it's a sort of green open access article as well. So that really helps you too. If you want to just take a quick look at what the article is about, you can click the View Abstract drop-down button, and it would actually give you a more detailed information about what the article is about without having to go into the article. So normally what happens is that you do a quick search, you click a look at the View Abstract, you see which of the words are highlighted, if this corresponds with what you're looking for, and then you go into what Sander had showed you to get more details about the specific research manuscript itself. And then you'll be able to understand how well it's performing in terms of citations, and you're able to view it at the publisher.
So I might just want to read the newest stuff. So I've now sorted it by new. And what about that feature to download different types?
Would it be if you were to select multiple or checkboxes, and then you'll be able to go to the top bar at the top and select either export or download based on what you're looking for to do?
Yeah, so if you're interested in different papers, you can save them to a list for later, or if you want to bulk download instead of linking to the different websites, you can. And I need a browser plugin, but there's a feature to bulk download. So if you select like 10 search results and boom, 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 you can download the PDFs in one go. So that's one thing to know. If your institution doesn't subscribe to a lot of full text content and you want to read only the open access content, you can use this filter here to limit to just the papers that are open access papers. And for sure, guaranteed, you are able to get to the full text. So you've got these buttons here. You can use either SFX button or full text, and it should magically bring you to the full text. Haha, all right, wants me to log in. So I guess the FX wasn't the greatest one. I always use the View It Publisher one. Allow cookies here, download PDF. And boom, I've got the full text. Okay, so reading is incredibly important. If we're researchers and we're thinking of investing time and money into researching a particular topic, we must understand the history of the topic, the methods, what's been done before us, so that we build from the edge of our human understanding and push that frontier forward. So having access to the body, the global body of literature related to our field and other fields is important, but you need to also be able to navigate such a big amount of information efficiently. And I think that's what we're trying to help with a little bit. So we hope that our comments are helpful. That is finding the full text. let's see, go back here. Understanding the impact of a paper. Yes, so here we were looking at the newest papers. I might look at the most highly cited papers. So we mentioned before, citations is the linking of references to a paper. So we can see that this paper that we just looked at, safety and efficacy of the vaccine, has been cited almost 4,000 times. So what does that mean? It means that 4,000 or 3,995 other papers have mentioned this paper in the references for some reason. And we can see here that there's some metrics. So we can see that that number of citations is 99th percentile. So it means that this paper is in the 1% most highly cited papers in the world. The field weighted citation impact is 625. So it's world average is 1, so 625 times world average. And we can view these other metrics, including PlumX metrics. So in addition to citations, we can see how many readers have added this paper to their Mendeley reference manager. We can see how many times the paper has been mentioned in blogs, how many times it's been tweeted on Twitter, how many times it's been shared or liked on Scopus, how many times it's been cited in clinical documents and so forth. So that gives you a lot of information about how this paper is being consumed and being received by others, which altogether gives you a view of like the impact or influence that the paper has had on other academics as well as people. You know, if it's being published in the news, your news mentions and blogs. And there is a very cool dashboard, so you can link through to view PlumX details, and it opens a dashboard that's dedicated to just this paper, this wonderful paper about the safety and efficacy of the vaccine. Nicholas, you're really great at going through this, so if you could.
Basically, PlumX is what we call alt metrics. Many people have always been asking, what metrics are we able to leverage on to understand the impact of the research article? People have been asking for more than just citation counts, more than say SNP, SJR, site score, although these are very good metrics. So all metrics is one way for us to understand it. So we can see in it, it's what I call a 5-leaf clover, because it's basically 5 different indexes and arms. We can see that the orange part would refer to citations. That would be under the citation indexes, under Scopus, PubMed Central, etc. In purple, that would be under captures, and we can see how many readers from Mendeley have basically downloaded this into their libraries. In yellow, that will be what we call mentions, and we can see how many times it's been mentioned in news, in blogs, in, for instance, Wikipedia. And in blue, we are able to see how many times it have trended over on social media as well, right? We can see it in tweets, tweeters, shares, likes, and comments, and Facebook. Answer is simple. The research community leveraged a lot on conversation, and Twitter is a very strong way for researchers to communicate with one another. So this is why we have actually tracked social media very well. We can see in this case, this research article is about 65,000 Twitter interactions across 205 URLs. We can see that these are some of the comments they have shared and they have basically been posted. Some of them would involve conversation, a couple of them not really, but in this case, we are able to see some of the questions which the researchers have put forward and the types of discourse that is actually ongoing. So this is actually a very strong way for you to understand ongoing research, I feel. And this is what we call as alt metrics. I think it's really powerful. It's very useful. This is something that you may want to find out more about a research topic as well.
So here, for example, we can see that the article's been mentioned in 12 Wikipedia references, and you can link to those Wikipedia articles, right? So it's always fully transparent, or we try to be as transparent as possible in terms of linking through to the underlying data. Same is true for the blogs. Here it's been mentioned in 149 blog posts. So here they are. You can pick one, should be able to link through to the blog, which will give you insight whether it's a positive mention or a negative mention. Okay, that's cool. So that is understanding the impact of a paper. And if I go back to Scopus, how did we do that? We basically, we did a search, right? So we searched for COVID-19 and vaccination, and I might add country. Let's see if Malaysia has done any research on our topic. $176 documents, right? We click on the document to open it to the kind of document overview page, right? So we see on the right, this paper has been cited 231 times. You see that as well here. And then there's this button here that says view all metrics. If I click on that, it opens a bigger dashboard. And under that, we can see view PlumX details, which will open the dashboard. Okay, so that's good for several purposes. One, if you're trying to read the papers that have been incredibly impactful, right? Because you have to decide which of the 10,000 papers that you find are the ones that you should read first. You might use impact to make that choice of reading the papers that you can see are really impactful because they're being cited by a lot of people and mentioned in a lot of places. So that's number one. Number two, it might also play a role in showcasing your own impact. So if you've published a paper or a group of papers, you can look at these metrics and understand how many people have cited you, but also how many people are talking about your paper in the news or mentioning them on Wikipedia or blogs and so forth. So both to make choices about what you read or demonstrate the impact of work that you've been doing. So that's quite straightforward. That's all there. You just gotta kind of scroll down and find that. Let's have a look at some of the questions so we don't answer them all at the end. I see one question from Juan Abdul Rahman. If the journal is discontinued by Scopus, does the citation will also be affected? If a journal is discontinued in Scopus, typically the forward flow of papers is stopped from the point that it was negatively reevaluated, right? So we will keep the older content in Scopus, but we stop indexing the new content. The older content can continue to collect citations. The papers and the citations still belong to the author and to the institutions and so forth. So in that way, the impact is minimal. However, in some selected cases of severe ethical misconduct, we can decide to remove all of the content of a journal. So if it was found to be a fraudulent journal, we, in some urgent cases, will remove all of the content. And unfortunately, that does mean that the papers are removed and they will no longer be in the institution or the author profile. And the citations to those papers will also not be counting to the H-index and other evaluation metrics. So we try to avoid that as much as possible. Unfortunately, in this day and age, sometimes it happens that a journal becomes predatory or adopts practices that are, really leading to fraudulent content that has to be removed. Again, we try to avoid that. The normal case is if the journal quality doesn't meet the criteria anymore, we stop the forward flow. The older content stays in Scopus. Dr. Khalid, does Scopus perform individual subscription? No, so Scopus is an institutional subscription. In this case, in Malaysia, the Ministry of Higher Education subscribes to Scopus for the 20 public universities. And we have a number, I think 4 or 5 private universities that subscribe on their own. And then all of the people at those institutions can use Scopus via the IP range of the institution. So there are no individual subscriptions. Mohammed Chazwan, in case of half-finished articles stored on our computer, what is your advice to motivate us to finish the final touches? Wow, motivation. Motivate yourself to finish your papers. You have to think of what your goals were. Why did you start it? Is it something that is a requirement for your education? Is it something that you've promised your mentor and your institution that you were going to do? Is it something that's important for society, that we find the answers to the questions that you've stated in your manuscript? So I think finding motivation is part of it. Is extrinsically, what are the requirements for me in my position as a student or a researcher, or Nicholas and I as consultants. Sometimes we have to do things because we said we would do them. Sometimes you don't feel like it. Get a coffee and get it done. You'll feel better when it's done. But also intrinsically, finding motivation is also about intrinsically remembering, why did you start something? Maybe if you get back to the reason you started doing something, the inspiration, the motivation, if you find that back, maybe you'll find the energy again. Nick, you got any thoughts on?
No, it's actually started. It boils down to, why do you start it for in the beginning? Like, what is your end in mind for starting in the first place? Why would you like to carry it on? Is it still relevant? And like you mentioned, sometimes you just got to do what you got to do, right? It is what it is. So having a coffee, having tea, sometimes you just got to buckle down and sit down and just tell yourself to finish it. It all boils down to a whole range of factors.
And prioritization. So I think when we have too many things to do, you got to figure out what the most important ones are, focus on those first. I think we have a fair deal of that in our lives, Nicholas. Is too many things. Where do I start? Prioritize. You got to have a sense of what's most important. Start there. Anonymous attendee, presenting research at a conference before going to the publication can advance visibility. Yeah, sure. If you want to advance visibility, publishing to audiences and talking about your research is always a great thing to do. And maybe you can follow up with your audience later and send them links to the final peer-reviewed content. You might share with them maybe an earlier version of the manuscript, all these things. I think it can't hurt, but at the same time, before you go through the peer review, you don't want to share all of your underlying data with people too openly, because again, you want to protect your own ownership of your research findings. So I think you have to strike that balance between getting visibility by talking about things, but at the same time, we don't want to give away everything so that maybe someone else is going to use that, use stuff that you've worked on for a long time without your permission. One more question before we go to the next use cases, and then we'll do the rest at the end. Bakriza Talib, article that is in preprints, is there any indicator showing that the particular paper is not in peer review or shall not pass the peer review process? Very good question. I don't believe so. So let's try and find an author who's got some preprints. I can try my guy. We can try Vauci, right? He's our favorite. Here, so I can see Richard Rudenkopf. He was my professor at the University of Amsterdam. He taught me how to do research, and he has 4 preprints, and you can see where they're published. But I think ultimately, if you see that these papers never end up in this list of his 200 documents, then you would know it didn't make it through peer review. So I think that's one way to do it. But no, to my knowledge, there's no indicator or something that says, hey, this one did make it through peer review and that one didn't. So it's something you have to keep an eye on yourself. But
Yep.
once it makes it through peer review, it should be, again, this list of 200 documents, this is all peer reviewed. These are from preprint server. So at some point, these should show up here. Okay. So what did we have left?
We did actually have quite a few topics that we have already overlapped.
Yep.
So under the analysis of authors, we are able to see what their latest articles are. We can go into more in-depth details into the author profiles before we delve into institutions and journals. There were some questions in the Q&A and chat that wanted to know more about how we could search for journals. We could do this in the next couple of minutes.
So we're going to look now at finding people, institutions, and journals, and then analyzing search results. So again, I'm going to, very unhandy how I switch windows, but Scopus, right? So we'll go back to our landing page. So I'm going to put the Q&A on a different screen. And yeah, so remember at the beginning, Scopus is geared around search, documents, authors, affiliation. So for this, so far we've been searching in documents, very clear. We can also search for authors. I just searched for Rita Rinkhoff, but you can search for anyone's Fauci.
You have lots of articles by now.
Some of my friends think he invented COVID.
I have no comments.
Yeah. So we can look at Anthony Fauci, and there's a number of things we can see about Anthony Fauci. You can see the affiliation history, right? That's awesome. So you can see all of the places that a person has published papers. You can see the subject areas that they publish in. If I was Anthony Fauci, I could come here and connect my profile to my ORCID ID. And I can make changes to my profile. So I'm not going to pretend I'm Anthony Fauci. That would be illegal. So I could say, no, I'm requesting this on behalf of someone else. And a couple of things that I could do about my profile, or in this case, if I'm Anthony Fauci's EA or PA, I could change the name. Like if I wanted to have just first letters instead of Anthony. And I could change the affiliation. It will only allow you to choose the affiliations that are in your paper. So in this case, he's published papers with like everyone. There might only be one or two choices for other people. Secondly, documents. You can choose to remove papers from your profile. So if this paper does not belong to Anthony Fauci, we can say remove from profile. And we can say, are there any documents missing? Say, yes, there's a document missing. I can type in you can type in the title of the paper and then it's like, oh yeah, no, it's this one belongs to me or belongs to Anthony, right?
And it has to be there, otherwise you won't be able to add it, right? So that makes perfect sense as well. You could do that.
Yeah, so now I'm going to review these changes. So here it says review the changes, and I'm going to remove these papers. I'm going to add this paper. Now, I'm not going to do it because it's wrong, probably illegal, but that is the process. It's really easy, totally worth it. If you are a researcher, go to Scopus, find your author profile, link it to ORCID, make sure it's correct. Government agencies, funding bodies, as well as your university, they are evaluating every researcher based on on their profile. So I'm going to go back to Richard, just because I like him. He would be shocked to know how many times I'm Richard. That's wrong. Wait.
You've got to go to Withering Cough and then Richard.
Yes. Yeah. So what can, if I am the University of Amsterdam's research office, I'm evaluating my researchers, or if I'm a funding body in Europe and I'm thinking about who should I give money to, right, to do research, they do use Scopus author profiles, as well as other data to understand how impactful a particular author is. So I can see Richard Rurinkov has been active for a long time. So I'd say pretty senior researcher has an H index of 67. So what does that mean? It means that 67 papers that Richard has produced are cited at least 67 times. So you can see here, the 67th paper is cited 68 times, and the 68th paper is cited 66 times. So when this paper receives 2 more citations, his H index will go up to 68. So it's where citations and papers meet, and it gives an indication of, yeah, I mean, someone with the H index of 67 is not a young man or woman, probably senior researcher. What else can we see?
Topics, I think.
Yeah, we can see topics. We can see a lot of citations here. We can see he's active in areas related to inhibition and short-term memory, and it's all this kind of neurocognitive aging and executive functions stuff that I studied as well. So a university or funding body or government that's evaluating people and trying to find who are the experts in a particular area that should, you know, be hired or should be involved in a project or should receive funding, part of the information they can use are the profiles. And that's why it's just really important for everyone to make sure their profile is correct and complete. Algorithmically created, they're pretty good, but also with common names, Chinese names, very common names, sometimes you get some inaccuracy. So it's totally worth it. If you have 2 hours a day to scroll through Facebook and Instagram, you can take 45 seconds to find your author profile in Scopus. Totally worth it. What else?
Affiliations, I think.
Searching for affiliation. So yeah, affiliation can be university. All right, it's even got the Malay spelling, University Malaysia Perlis. It's been a long time since I went to Perlis. I did used to go there, and I would always fly to Penang, and then I would drive up to Perlis because that meant that I can spend the night in Penang. But I have to say the people of Perlis were very kind to me, and I used to go there like once or twice a year to visit Unimap. And like every other university and institution, they have a profile, Unimap. We can see different information. You can see there's different names that have been mapped up to Unimap. And we can see they have published a certain amount of papers in different fields. And if we want to see all of their papers, we can do it just like that. You get the list of all of Unimap's papers and all of the sorting options and all of that stuff we already showed you. But you could also look and say, all right, I want to see which authors are working at Unimap. So here you get a nice list of all of the kind people of Unimap. You don't only have academic institutions. So I could set a document alert. Everyone, I want to receive an email every time Unimap publishes a new paper. I'm going to send it to Nicholas. No, I won't do it. Never mind. start getting like 1,000 emails every day. But you can see if there's a hierarchy. They don't have a hierarchy. You can see who they collaborate with. You can see which journals they publish in. But there's not only academics. So if I wanted to know affiliations, all right, so we can see what papers are Apple publishing and understand what research Apple is doing, or sorry. Pfizer. And I'm going to skip to the next topic a little bit because we might want to analyze search results. So here I'm looking at Pfizer, like what am I doing? Like, why do I want to know this? I might click on this giant list of 72,000 papers. It's a lot. I might, select them and download them, but there's a nice button here called Analyze Search Results. So we can see Pfizer has been publishing for a long time. They're very old. And we can see who their top authors are. We can see who they work together with, countries, subject areas. We can see who funds their research. So there's a lot of kind of interesting things you can see. You can do that for any search result. So any search that you do on Scopus, the weirdest search you can do, I want it to be about vaccines, and I want it to be about Malaysia, and I want it to be about this and that and that and that. And then you get, the papers, you just press analyze search results, and you'll be able to see the trend of research as well as all of this. And you can click through to it. So if you want to click through to the top authors, you can say, all right, I want to know this top author of Pfizer. I'm going to click on that, and it's going to link to their author profile. So I can see that Joseph Capillari is affiliated to Pfizer Incorporated and has published these papers in these 54 topics, which are related to, I assume, to the work that they're doing. So again, everything in Scopus is connected. I searched for Pfizer and I linked through to their content, and then I found their top authors and linked through to the author and their papers and the topics and so forth. So it's I think pretty straightforward stuff, but you have to know that it's there. So that's affiliations. And I keep telling everyone to make it easier. Searching for journals is up here, sources. So if you want to search for journals or for books or conferences, go up here, go to sources. You've got a little filter here. You can search by subject area or per title, publisher, ISSN. So if you know what journal you're searching for, you can type in the title. However, you might just want to know all of the journals related to a particular field. In that case, subject area is good. And if you click here, you can see we have 27 big subject areas, and we've got lots of disciplines. So let's say that I want to look specifically at cancer research, right? So if I'm a researcher that's active in cancer research and cell biology and biotech, let's say those three. I'm pretending because I'm a psychologist. We find there's 1,000 journals that publish in those areas. What can we see about those journals? We can see site score. So if I want to know which are the first quartile journals, so the 25% highest quality journals for these fields, I can apply quartile 1. And I can see it's these journals here. So let's say I want to look at Nature Cell Biology. If I open this one, I see it's got a site score of 31, and that 31 means it's the average number of citations received by the papers published in the journal. We can see that the journal ranks number 6 of 279 journals in cell biology. So it's top 2%. It's a very high, highly qualitative, impactful journal. So that's one way to do it. But if you just want to see all of the journals that are in Scopus, yeah, you can see them here, but probably you want to download the source title list. So if you download the complete list, you can get the either with metrics or just the titles. And there you can really see which journals are active, or if it's been discontinued. You can see the coverage years. You can see the site score values year by year. You can see which fields the journals are related to. If you want to search only within like book series or something, right? So you can do that. But anyway, that's there. I think. Is there anything that I've missed, Nick?
No, I think filtering by subject areas is really one of the most useful ways to do so. The other thing you can do is to also filter it by journal title, or sometimes there's a publisher that you may trust in, such as Elsevier, and then you can just simply type in our name in, and you'll be able to see what are the list of journals that Elsevier publishes across the categories as well, right? So this is because we filter it by book series, but when we filter it by just journals, you find a lot more titles. So there are about 1,500 journal titles from Elsevier that's been indexed over in Scopus. So one thing which I want to clarify, not all journals published by Elsevier are automatically indexed within Scopus. In one of our later webinars that we will be conducting, we'll showcase to you what are the criteria that we have in place as to how a journal is indexed and how it's continued to be indexed. But suffice to say, these are very stringent policies. We work together with the Content Selection Advisory Board, which are an external panel of subject matter experts, and they are the ones who make the decision whether or not a journal should be indexed within Scopus or otherwise. And I think that's a very important caveat that I wanted to share with everyone as well.
Okay, so I see a question. Are there any tips for, so Sabrina Adam, is any tips for social sciences researchers to publish in Scopus, because it's a little bit challenging to compare with engineering field? Yeah, so there are social sciences titles in Scopus, quite a lot of them. I think in terms of comparing to engineering or other fields, yes, social sciences is different, and you might publish less, and institutions should know to evaluate you a little bit differently than they evaluate people in harder sciences. But there are many places for you to publish the knowledge that comes out of social sciences, either in journals or in books. I'm going to turn off the publisher here and just have a look at subject areas. And we're going to pick the main subject area here, which go down to the S. So you could either pick social sciences as a whole or what your particular focus is, right? But let's say social sciences as a whole. So there are 8,774 titles related to some degree to social sciences. Right? So within here, you would need to look at what matches your field. So if you look at, and let's say that your mentor said you need to publish in Q1 or Q2, I might say Q1, Q2. Still have over 4,000 results. So let's say review of educational research. So you can see that this journal is covered from 1931 to present, and it's published by Sage. And you would need to understand whether your manuscript, what you're working on, fits with this particular journal. So one way to do it is to look at the papers that they've published in the recent years, right? So you can simply view the documents. So here you've got, and you might want to start with the most recent ones, right? So it's right, newest at the top. and look at, this is what they're publishing in. So that would give you really insight into what topics are they publishing in, what do their papers look like, the style that's being accepted, the type, it would give you a lot of intelligence. But the other one is really going to the website of the journal to understand what their requirements are and looking at the instructions for authors there. So there's two ways to do that. Sometimes there's a link in Scopus to the journal website. Sometimes there's not. And if there's not, you should just go to Google and type in the name and Sage and find the website of the journal. So let's see, homepage, source homepage. Is it going to work?
The other alternative is to also search by ISSN, because you will find in certain cases there will be some journals which would have taken the names of these journals and would they have like made it predatory as well, so that they'll be able to prey on authors who want to submit to a very prominent journal that's been indexed in Scopus.
Yeah, I didn't
Sometimes
like
you
that
find
one.
that that's false. Yeah. So what you can do is that you can simply copy the ISSN and to also look for it as a cross-reference as well. So there are a few ways to verify this. So the journal homepages that Sander has shown you is actually my go-to as well when you want to find out about what's the criteria to submit to the journal. Most quality journal homepages would have publication standards, a checklist, and an author's guide. So please take a look when you want to submit a paper to this journal. What are some of the information that you need? What's the best format? What you should pay attention to when you're structuring your manuscript.
Okay, we've got just 3 minutes left officially. We see still 22 open questions, so let's try and race through some of these. Hi for me, Dr. Mina Haroon. Hi for me, Scopus.com is awesome. My question is, how do we know that our newly published paper, for instance, gets listed as well as other details such as H-index? Are we informed through our emails? As in, I will need access to Scopus.com to find out. Yeah, no, I mean, if you publish in a journal or a book or a conference that's covered in Scopus, then your paper will be in Scopus. But there is no way for Scopus to inform all of the authors that a paper has been loaded into Scopus unless you've set up a search alert. So yes, you would need access to Scopus to set up a search alert, and then you would get an email every time that a paper is loaded. In absence of a subscription, so that would mean working at a university that has a subscription so that you can access it, then that's going to be a little bit more difficult. I think there's some preview pages for Scopus that are available. You might be able to see which an author profile in a preview mode. But in Malaysia, it really should be possible to get access to Scopus.com. And I think almost every institution is using Scopus. Ibham Visa, thanks for the event. I have a question. Scopus aims at analyzing research quality based on quantitative approaches such as number of citations, SGR, etc. Is there any metric that evaluates it using qualitative approach, taking into consideration the content or the text? Your answer is greatly appreciated. So that's a great question. It is very important that research is evaluated both quantitatively and qualitatively. And Elsevier is collecting as much information that can tell a balanced story about research based on both quantitative and qualitative factors. But ultimately, most of what's in Scopus is quantitative. Huh? I mean, we're collecting insights on citations and number of mentions and the quality of the journal and so forth. And it should be the responsibility of the university and of the government funding, research evaluation framework to also collect qualitative insights about research and the impact of research on society and on innovation, on whatever the qualitative insights are. It's very important for an evaluation framework to collect that information and present it together with the quantitative information so that a person, a human being, can look at both and make an evaluation of the success or value of what's been done. We cannot do that as just as a database. I think every university and every government creates its own framework for doing that. And we're trying to provide as much useful information to be used there, but everyone really does it differently. Anonymous attendee, could you advise us on what is the proper steps on working with editors and reviewers, especially do's and don'ts for the manuscript? It's a very, very big topic. So Nicholas, is there a workshop that you're giving that they can join?
I will be sharing the information shortly. There'll be a couple of workshops that we're going on, and I'll share them with your institutions and your libraries as well, and to share this information with you as well. So not to worry. This will be APAC level workshops.
What does it mean by gold open access at a document type?
So a gold open access happens when the researcher would have to pay the article processing charges, and thereby allowing readers to be able to read it for free. So this is a bit different in terms of a publication model. The traditional publication model, the researcher would submit the article and the manuscript to the journal publisher, and the journal publisher would charge the reader a fee to read for the article. So the big difference is it, are you paying to read, or are you, paying to read, or to read and publish? So those are the two main different strategies as well. So Go Open Access happens when the author of the manuscripts pays upfront so that people will be able to read for free.
All right, so we're over time. I guess people are going to start to drop off if they have something else to do, but let's answer a couple more questions. Anonymous attendee, I would like to ask about Scopus coverage years for journals. If I select a journal and the displayed Scopus year show 2015 to 2021, does that mean that the journal's been discontinued? So when you look in Scopus at the coverage years, right, so here it says 1931 to present, but sometimes it says like to 2021. That means what is in the database. It could mean in some cases that, for example, if a journal was late delivering their content and we don't have 2022 content yet, it will say that, the database covers to 2021. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's discontinued unless it actually says discontinued here, right? So first of all, it should say discontinued if it's discontinued, but the best place to check, and actually the really important, is to just download the list here. And you can see what the status and actual coverage years are for every journal. So this is the authoritative place to do that. We update this list once a month. Good morning. May I know whether there's a filter mode of research, quantitative, qualitative, or mixed mode? Thank you. So no, there's no filter. I hope that I answered it in the previous answer about qualitative, that we have, most of what we have is really quantitative data covering different dimensions of research and impact. How do I connect with specific authors for reviewing a systematic literature review? It's another big topic. I think Author Workshop is the right place to do that. Can I sync Scopus journals with endnotes? Nick, what can they do with an endnote? Because they can use Scopus to export things into a number of reference managers. And we didn't show that, so let's quickly do that. So does that mean if I have a group of papers, let's pretend it's these papers.
You can select a couple and then you can choose to export it. So you won't be able to sync the journals entirely, but you'll be able to sync some of these individual references into EndNotes itself under the RIS format.
So here you can export it into the RIS format, and that's compatible with EndNote. So I think that, you know, because we're going way over time, I'm really sorry we didn't answer all of your questions. I hope that most of them were addressed. I think we want to run you through quickly the support features and give you a link to the survey and the certificates. So our apologies that there's so many questions, we didn't cover them all. Yeah, so the certificate, you can, if you wish to get a certificate, you can use the QR code or the survey link here. So I'll leave this on the screen. Take a picture of it, please. You need the workshop code as well. So it's going to ask you for a workshop code. It's going to ask you a couple questions. Your rating of our performance is important to us. So I hope that you'll find it in your hearts to be kind. We hope that what we did today is helpful. And we're going to see you a number of, 5 more times for Scopus specifically, and we might also do some other webinars to cover other topics. So you might get used to our faces. At some point, we'd like to come in person and not do everything virtually. But for now, yeah, webinars, and for every webinar, you can get the certificate, but you have to do the survey.
So for everyone's convenience, I have actually pasted the survey link and the workshop code over here as well, so that everyone's able to access this. So you make your life just a bit easier.
Yeah. So sometimes I get like, 100 emails from participants saying, hey, I don't know how to get my certificate. And I'm not able to answer all the emails because it's really a lot of people. So again, it's in a platform called Research Academy, right? And you have to create a login. If you don't already have one, you can simply create a register to get a login. And once it will ask you your name and certain things. You have to fill that in, because that's how you fill in your name there is how it's going to look on the certificate, right? Once you have that, it means that all of our, you have that login, all of our events, you can get the certificate for the event quite easily. It's just going to ask you for the workshop code and to answer a couple questions about your experience of the workshop. So again, please take a picture of this slide if you didn't already use the QR code, because again, I'm not able to answer all the emails when there's so many emails being sent asking how to get the certificate. I feel very rude not answering, but it's like, Nicholas.
So there's quite a number of additional resources that you're actually able to access to, so that we can actually support you even better. So we do have a Scopus certification program for librarians. So if you're interested, feel free to reach out to Sandra and myself, and we put your names on as well. You can find more information on elsevier.com/Scopus. You'll also be able to find a Scopus library guide. You can join us over in Elsevier at the Library Connect Academy, and this will come across as a plethora in multiple presentations and talks and thought leadership programs about how libraries are establishing their resources globally. You can also join the Library Connect newsletter, the Librarian Toolkit, to get more information about it. And for the latest updates on Scopus, you can go to blog.scopus.com, where we talk about the most updated functionalities that you'll be able to access to, or you can join us at twitter.com/Scopus. So these are a few different portals and sites that you can go to get more information. So over here, we have more detailed links for you to go onto as well. What Sandra and I have been doing will be customizing onboarding program and training sessions. If you need real help, like on urgent details, and Sandra and I aren't available, you can go to the Scopus support hub. You can click on it. You find a lot of good questions.
You can email Benny.
You could email Benny, yes.
Email Benny.
So
yes, there's a lot of different information sources these days, right? So these are live links. I will PDF this, and I have to see how we can get this PDF to people, because last time I tried to email it, and my email at Elsevier got shut down because they thought I was spamming people. So That's how do you do it, Nicholas? How do you get the PDF to your participants?
I would send it to the librarians usually.
Okay, but we've got 20
Yeah.
institutions, right?
Yep. So I will contact my librarians and I'll send it over to them.
Okay. I'll have
Yeah.
to see how we can get this content out there, but the recording we'll send through. I think so. I've set up an email. So tomorrow, all of the participants are going to receive an email, and in that email, there's a link to the survey and the certificate, and there's a link to a website that has all of our older webinars. And at some point, this webinar will be added there. So that's also one way to do it. So that was it for today. I apologize we didn't answer all the questions. We hope this was helpful, and hope to see you at the other 5 sessions and maybe in person one of these days.
So thank you so much for spending time with us this Tuesday morning. It was great to see everyone again. Like Sander mentioned, hopefully we'll be able to see one another face to face, and hopefully sooner rather than later. In the meantime, do stay safe, do take care. We'll see you around soon.
All right. Take care, everyone. Bye.